to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Yeah, and after about 2 months or something like that, we're back with live streams. It's definitely not as nice as some people's live streams that you watch on StreamYard. But look, we're live again, and plenty of you guys have asked, when are you going live again? We miss your live streams, and that's exactly what we're doing. And this is a emergency episode of the Free Kick Podcast, and as you guys can tell from the title of the show, as you guys can tell from the many outlets that have reported the biggest news that not only shocked the Philadelphia Union fan base, but I would say the MLS fan base as a whole. That is Jim Curtin out as Philadelphia Union manager after 10 seasons. And I thought, who better to go live with than my good friend José Nuñez. Jose, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I know we started a little late. I'm actually partially, if not fully, the reason for it. Yesterday was my anniversary with my wife, 9 years, love of my life, mother of my children, the reason why I live and breathe. But the oddity of it being midweek, kind of like a Thursday, makes it difficult, especially with 2 kids, to really celebrate anything. So we went out to dinner tonight. We got a sitter who's actually her cousin. Who I have known since he was, I think he was like 6, and now he's 23. So like it's been a while. So anyhow, yeah, sorry we're late, but man, what a week. Did you ever expect to have this much to do ahead of any one press conference? Never mind an end of season press conference. I can't remember in the past 2.5, 3 years of something like this.
No, I mean it's insane. So to set the stage, like how this week went. We all know that the Philadelphia Union 2, their second team, play tomorrow. We're recording this podcast on Friday night. I know we are live, so yeah, tomorrow for people who are watching live. But yeah, so they take on North Texas tomorrow down in Frisco, Texas for the MLS Next Pro Cup. North Texas is FC Dallas's second team, and go figure that you have arguably the 2 best academies in MLS going head to head. And so that's what I think pretty much all of us were expecting, getting ready for that week. So I went up to Chester on Tuesday to interview Nick Pariano and Marcus Anderson, watched Union 2 training, and very, very grateful for Nico, who's the PR guy for Union 2 and helps out with the first team and whatnot. He does it all for the Union. And yeah, he allowed me to stay for like an hour for practice just to watch. And then, I interviewed Nick and Marcus, and they were great to interview, and really lovely players. And so, yeah, we thought, okay, I'll go ahead and get an article typed up before the game. And this is going to be how the week goes, just focusing on Union 2. We had no word about the Philadelphia Union end of the season press conference. And you and I feel like we were talking all the time, every single day. When's the press conference going to be? And then we get this news on Thursday that Jim Curtin has been fired. And the crazy thing is too, right? We'll take it a step backwards and peel the curtains even more. You leave for work next week, and you said, I guarantee you they will have an end of the season press conference when I am away for work. And that's exactly what happened.
It is exactly what happened. And let's even take it a step back, Todd. I know I didn't mention it to you, because we communicate so much. It's crazy. Same with Mike and Dave on my end with AAT Sports. But someone had reached out to me and said, hey, there's big news coming tomorrow. I'm like, okay, well, I know a couple of things and announcements that are coming that are now extra interesting because of Jim being gone, though. Really, a lot of it has to do with Ernst Tanner and in terms of, the things that he can control. No, he's not leaving or anything like that. But stuff that, he is, it's really about players, to just be super blunt about it. So I assumed when this person reached out and said, hey, big news coming tomorrow, I was like, okay, well, maybe it's this one thing I know. I didn't prod. I didn't ask too many things. You've gotten to sort of hear how I work with sources and people and stuff like that, Todd. And I like to think I'm very thoughtful and see it as sort of like a currency, right? Like being thoughtful about how many times I reach out and what I ask and really think about it to justify and really make the most out of the time. So I didn't ask and prod too much, but man, I did not expect for that to be what they were sort of signaling me to. So Yeah, guess the union world has gone from 0 to 100, right? We went from waiting for a routine end of season press conference to silly season getting started already with names being dropped for potential replacements from Jim Curtin that are coming potentially from Germany. So like it is just an unreal past 24, 48 hours and still shock, right? The second longest most tenured coach in MLS suddenly gone and really could land anywhere he really wanted to, considering his pedigree and what he has done with. And I take this phrase out of Cano Smith out in Rhode Island FC when I went to see them, but like Rhode Island hired Carl Spratt and Dave McKay because of the union way. That's exactly what he told me. It's like they know how to make more and do more with less, and that's why we like them at Rhode Island. Jim Curtin is that times 100. So man, what a crazy week.
So you heard it here first. José Nuñez is confirming that Jim Curtin's going to Rhode Island since they
No,
hired
no, 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 no,
everybody
no,
from
no.
the
Like,
organization.
Jim Curtin's not going to Rhode Island.
No, but I think you bring up a good point. And I was listening to another podcast yesterday, and they were talking about, if you're a team in MLS where, okay, you're okay with your manager, you're happy with them, but when a Jim Curtin becomes available in the market, do you get rid of your manager even though you're happy with him because a Jim Curtin doesn't come around all the time? And that got me thinking where I could potentially see in Orlando City with Oscar Pereira. Yes, they've been in the playoffs the last couple seasons. They were one of the hottest teams of the second half of this season. But I think Jim Curtin's a better manager than Oscar Pereira. DC United, even though they just hired Troy Lezane, I think he's a good upcoming coach. I mean, you and I talked how he did a fantastic job last year with Red Bulls, and we were a little bit shocked that he never got that job. I could see DC United making sense. And then the other team that I thought about was my phone is just absolutely blowing up. Could you see a Toronto maybe? Toronto could potentially make sense. I mean, I know they just hired John Herdman, but they have a lot of money. And I think, if I'm Jim Curtin, I would want to go to a team that's going to give me as much money to spend as possible. And yes, we haven't even talked about how he apparently turned down a job interview from Atlanta United about a month ago, or whatever the case may have been, because he wanted to stay in Philadelphia. We know FC Dallas has an opening. We know St. Louis has an opening. But I mean, could you see the possibility, Jose, of Jim Curtin potentially getting picked up by a team that, has a manager at this moment, but, they see Jim Curtin as a clear upgrade?
What I can, for allegedly, as I've heard and understand, there was interest at one point from Toronto, as someone told me, source, whatever you want to call it, which is really interesting when you think about the comments from Jason Hernandez earlier, during their end of season press conference, where Jason Hernandez more or less answered, what do we want the identity? What do we want this club to be? And one of the teams he mentioned out of the two was actually Philadelphia. So as you think about, Jim Curtin now gone and the interest, not saying that that's where he's going to go or where he could go, but from my understanding is that Toronto at some point was interest. I'm guessing before Herdman got there. I know that Jim has also had interest from abroad, like a QPR, is my understanding, was also interested in Jim at one point or another. So
years ago, we're talking.
Yeah, right. Years ago. And then obviously most recently with Atlanta. And sure, we had that little stint of guessing and wondering about even the U.S. men's national team, right before he got this contract extension and thinking like, what the hell is going on? Like, is he going to come, going to go? And then ultimately he's like, no, I'm staying, and then signed his deal. But yeah, no, I also, gosh, I selfishly want this guy to land where it makes the most sense, but also he's going to be happy. So like, I want him to have what seems to be, from my understanding, sort of one of the biggest friction points between him, ownership, and Ernst Tanner, being that of spending, player, personnel, that type of thing. And sure, I posted some clips and I only posted 3, but I can think of 4 other ones I couldn't actually find. So like, obviously it was eroding, obviously was happening. And sure, folks outside of the Philadelphia media have commented about at one point how good the relationship was, and then suddenly commenting how poor the relationship is and this happening, etc. It's just really a turn of events. I mean, again, I see Miss Sexy Hoagie in the chat here somewhere, but like, dude, we were at Subaru Park after Cincinnati, and I can't recall if it was Sexy Hoagie. You got to give us your real name because I do not want to be calling you that often. But I think I remember this commenter saying, Curtin out, and I'm thinking to myself, if anything, Curtin's the safest. Brought Kevin Sullivan, has helped with in a way helped another friction point, not playing young players and resorting back to the comfortable or the comfort of an Alejandro Bedoya, allegedly, as I hear it in the game of telephone. But like, I don't think you and I would have ever bet that Jim Curtin was going to be the fall guy, the scapegoat to this entire situation. And then I think it really just came down to, Jay Sugarman saying, like, I'm going to side with Ernst. I'm all in on this whole thing, borrowed a ton of money to build this academy and these buildings and invest in the infrastructure to have this pipeline of players. And another article today from Gimme Sport talking about the golden generation or another golden generation of homegrowns. They're all in on that. And Jim was going to help with that, but not nearly probably as fast as maybe was intended, if that makes any sense. I know I just gave you a ton there.
Yeah, it was a ton. And I feel like you hit on like every single topic point that we were going to talk about.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're completely fine. So, this is why we have Jose here. He's setting it up so you guys don't leave. So I see as the viewer numbers keep coming in, I appreciate you guys coming on live.
What's the number?
It's at 41. It was at 41.
Yo,
so,
that's great.
Yeah, it's pretty good. When I'm not even going to name the other hosting site that I was using was not getting nearly as many viewers live on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Yeah. And that's nice too, because we're live in 3 places. So if I really wanted to, I could add your Twitter here too, and we can now stream on your Twitter too and have both of our Twitters going. But yeah, I don't want to mess with it right now when we're already live. So maybe that's for another time.
Fuck with it, right? Remember when we were live with Mike and I ended the stream prematurely or whatever? I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah, it was bad. But anyways, Todd, carry on. Sorry.
No. I mean, you set it out perfectly. I mean, what we're going to talk about, and again, I said it at the beginning of the show. I mean, you guys have seen on social media the talking points for tonight. But I think one good place to start is. And this is crazy, too. I went back listening to Jim Curtin's very last press conference with the Philadelphia Union after Cincinnati, and I didn't even ask a question. I mean, I wasn't really in a mood to ask a question that night. Now that I go back and think about it, just because so many other people had asked questions before us, multiple people asked multiple questions, and it's like, okay, well, what really can I add? But the very last question in that press conference was a fairly new journalist, and I haven't got his name, and my apologies to him, but he started covering the team once Danley was announced by the Union, and he asked a lot of questions about Danley, and that's completely fine. But he asked after the game, do you feel like your job's safe? Like, will you be back next season? And I remember when that was asked, there was people from the Union's organization, not going to name names, but they kind of like roll their eyes like, why would you ask that question? And that kind of caught me right. that caught me by surprise too, because I'm like, well, why wouldn't he be back? Like, if anything, and you said it, I felt like Jim Curtin was the safest guy in the room, and long and behold, that actually wasn't the case. So this was Jim Curtin's very last answer at a press conference. This was after the Cincinnati game on decision day, and this is what Jim Curtin had to say. Will you be back next season?
I have a contract through 2026, so I don't make those decisions, but I want to be here in Philly. This club means a ton to me, and those decisions are made by people above my pay grade.
Yeah, I mean, you heard Jim Curtin. He said, I have a contract through 2026, and that's what I was like, yeah, of course he does. Like, you and I both know Jim Curtin kept going year after year after year contract extension. And it's like, you guys either believe in me or you don't. Give me more than 1 year guaranteed. And Jim Curtin gets his big contract extension in 2023, I believe it is. That was guaranteed through 2026. Him and Ernst Tanner had both signed on through 2026, and they both had...
reported.
Reported, yes.
Tanner.
The union never reported. That's correct. The union never officially reported that Tanner had signed on through 2026. They did
And
for
that's
Jim
on
Curtin.
purpose, from what I've heard.
Interesting. That is very interesting. And I always thought that this is no sources. This is my opinion. I want to make that very clear. I always thought that out of Ernst Tanner and Jim Curtin, that Ernst Tanner would be the one that would go. I thought, my opinion again, that Ernst Tanner would get fed up with the project here in Philadelphia. But from my understanding, Ernst Tanner was intrigued by the job with the union because he wanted the challenge of the MLS roster rules, and he wanted the challenge of an owner that wasn't going to spend a lot of money. He basically took the project as, hey, look, I want to show people in Europe, around the world, that I can do it on a very tight budget, and we're going to do it my way. And Ernst Tanner supposedly signed through 2026. Jim Curtin definitely signed through 2026. And then he was gone. And like Jim said there, I don't make these decisions that are above my pay grade. And like we talked at the beginning of the show, that we were waiting for this end of the season press conference. And I think once Union 2 continued to advance throughout the playoffs, we're like, okay, they're waiting for Union 2 to wrap up. This makes sense. Then you had been told, there's some changes that should make the fan base pretty happy. That's as much as I'll say. And you're like, okay, they're just waiting for those announcements, and Union 2 kept winning. But then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait, Jim Curtin. That's what they were waiting for. And again, there's a tweet that I want to show the audience. I want to bring up a little bit later on. But yeah, that to be the last question for Jim Curtin at a press conference, and for Jim to be like, yeah, I want to be here. Like, we all know he lives and breathes Philly. And wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah, the one thing I want to clarify though, Todd, because I know that people watch this. I know that people, obviously we know people watch this, God. We have 40 wonderful people with us watching, listening to us, and then however many listen to your feed is. I don't know. I have no idea if Jim being let go had to do with why this end of season press conference is taking so long, or has been. I don't know if they were connected. It feels like they are. But I also don't know that Jim has been fired for that long. You know what I mean? So like, I wonder if this development of Jim being relieved of his duties is more of a sudden thing than premature of like, okay, Cincinnati lost. We get that unbelievably timing wise question, like an incredible timing for that question to be the final one. It's almost like poetic in a way too, if you think about it, for that question to be asked. Like, I'm not sure that like the next day Jim got sacked and now they're waiting till a month later. Like, I don't think so. Again, I just want to clarify that to not give any false sense of like what the timeline was. It's just genuinely no one knows. We're just trying to piece it together with what we do know.
So the one thing I will add to there is, like I said, I went to union training on Tuesday, and the first team was training, but they were so far away that I couldn't see all the players that were there. I knew Andre Blake was there. Jacob Glesnes, I'll go ahead and say it. Jacob Glesnes was there, but he was off the side, wasn't practicing. I couldn't see if Jim Curtin was there or not, but when I pulled into Subaru Park, I did see his car because I've been to the stadium plenty of times. And last year when I was at the media game, Jim Curtin parked his car on the where the gates are to get into the stadium. And so I knew what Jim Curtin drives. And then we saw him
it's a Subaru Ascent.
One of the
game.
Looks like. Yeah. And so I saw Jim Curtin's car and I was like, okay, well, Jim Curtin's here. So I can confirm at least his car was there at the stadium on Tuesday, but I can't speak that I saw him himself. And so, yeah, I mean,
do you think he was inside picking up his stuff in like a banker's box, like you see in like, like the what's the movie with Steve Carell, like The Big Short, like after the financial crisis happens and they go into like the bank and everybody's leaving with like a cardboard box with all their shit in there. Like, Jim just has this really sad, and I don't like the man, don't get me wrong, but like I just see in my mind's eye, I see Jim Curtin, this man who's like 6'3", carrying this tiny cardboard box with like his stopwatch that he always wore around practice, posters, that type of stuff. Yeah, man, it's the timing is just so crazy. So crazy.
It really is. A lot of comments coming in. We're up to 51 people, if you're wondering, Jose. So this is great. I mean, keep sharing this, people on social media, and I appreciate you guys. I mean, so many questions coming in. I mean, I'm missing so many. Um,
Someone asked what I was drinking. It
yeah,
is
yeah, I saw
Green
that too. Yeah, you
River,
saw that.
a
Yeah, yeah.
bourbon from Kentucky.
From Evan. Yeah, there we go. What's on the
Yes,
glass, Jose?
Evan. Yeah,
We had
that's what it is.
LA, friend of the show, say Jose is a legend. Yeah, Jose is a legend. That's why we decided to wait a day instead of going live on Thursday and bring Jose in here. Man, so many. Here's a question from LA. So would Tanner be the one that took this decision? I don't know if I want to talk about that yet, and I don't know if you know anything, and if you do, if you want to share it, you can. You can't. It's not up to you, but I do want to start this and actually come back to this because we have talking points towards the end of the show that I want to bring that up, LA. So that's a good question. We have a comment from Michael who says, really makes me want to go back and watch the town hall over the summer, see if there was any indicators during that. I know a lot of the ticket holders were annoyed. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked a lot about, whether it be on my show, you talking about on AAT Sports or on Twitter. I don't know. I'm kind of over talking about the town hall, Jose. I mean, there were some good sound bites from that, I think, and some good questions asked. From one friend of the show, Mike Thomas, asked a multitude of high level questions, and you can see that annoyed Jay Sugarman a little bit. But for me, I don't know. I mean, Jim Curtin kept saying during the town hall, I take the blame. This is on me. We're having this town hall because of me. And any leaders going to take the blame and everything, like I expect nothing less from Jim Curtin to do that. But in my opinion, Jim Curtin isn't the reason for that town hall. Yes, the way that the Union season went did lead to that town hall because the fans were upset with, the Union's injury records, not signing players while the league kept getting better and better. And so, fans let their voices be heard on social media and at the stadium. And it eventually led to a town hall with the ownership and Jim Curtin, Ernst Tanner, and Tim McDermott, which, I do got to applaud the fans. And I think the fans need to realize how lucky they are that they got a town hall out of that, because not many ownership groups, not many sports leagues, teams are going to bow down to the fans' wishes and allow any fans to come in and ask ownership whatever questions they want. So, I mean, Union fans should be thankful that the owners actually listen to that. But yeah, before we move on, Jose, to the next one, again, I mean, so many questions coming in here, guys. I appreciate everything. Do you want to talk about this actually real quick, Jose? Philly Rivers said the Club World Cup, and I didn't even have this in the show notes. If you don't want to touch this, it's fine. We don't have to. He says, give us that 50 million. It's 60 million, something like that. And I've seen some fans on social media say, you know what? I don't want us to get into the Club World Cup. I don't want Jay Sugarman to get that money. Do you want to touch this, Jose? How the Union could potentially qualify or not? It's up to you. If not, we can tell people to check out your Twitter. I know you post everywhere. So, I mean, if you want to get the views for that, we can absolutely do that.
No, I mean, I'll touch on it super quick. I mean, it really comes down to a crazy circumstance where an ownership group owns two teams that technically fit the profile of have earned their way to the Club World Cup. Kicker, yeah, thank you, Mark. I pumped the brakes on that. Yeah, it's an ownership group that FIFA suddenly released a manual at some point in early to late October, saying more or less, club ownership, multi-club ownership is not allowed. So Grupo Pachuca, which owns Pachuca and León, who won the was it CCC or CONCACAF Champions Cup in different years, both qualified, but because of this new rule, one of them can only go. So therefore, through a ton of if this then that type of situation, the Union do have technically a way to make it into the Club World Cup after, I think all of us sort of cheering for Monterrey to actually have won and made it a clean way in for the Union. So we'll see, man. Again, a lot has to happen, including some gut decisions by FIFA, but they've already made gutsy decisions in terms of allowing Miami with no real reason to be part of representing the host nation of the US. I mean, we know what the reason is, and it's the little guy in pink. And I mean Messi, not Alba. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see, man. Not a whole lot there. Philly Rover outside of just literally waiting, though. That decision has to come up soon because the very last club to qualify is the winner of the Champions League version of the South American competition. So that happens within, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, if I recall. So it's gonna come down fairly quick, and we'll see. I mean, it could be decided that quickly, and maybe the Union do, in such a strange roundabout way, have an opportunity to play in the Club World Cup without someone that's not Jim Curtin at the helm.
Yeah, that'd be wild. I mean, for as much as he's advocated for the World Cup coming to Philadelphia in 2026 and advocating for the Club World Cup, wanting to participate in that, I mean, feels weird that the Philadelphia Union potentially could be in the Club World Cup when none of us expected that to happen with the way the season went. And now here's a loophole, and here's FIFA coming up with rules as they go, kind of like MLS did during the season, where they said, you know what, we're going to introduce this new rule called the pathway, where you can go 4 U22 players, 2 DPs, or 3 DPs, 3 U22 players. So, that's just soccer organizations. That's they're just going to make up the rules as they go. But let's go ahead, Jose, and talk about the next topic I want to bring up, and that is what other dominoes could potentially fall, whether that be players, coaches leaving now that Jim Curtin's out. And I think you can expect a lot to be on the table. And the one thing that we know for sure, and we can go ahead and, again, I feel so bad, having you talk so much, but you broke the news today, and I think this caught a lot of people by surprise. It's caught me by surprise that you look at the Union. They're a very analytical team. They have one of the top analytic teams in MLS, and it's not a huge analytic department, but Analysts Evolved, I believe that website's called or whatever. I'll leave a link in the description. I forget the website's name exactly. Maybe somebody in the comments can let me know. But they interview teams before the end of this start of the season and see who has the best analytic department. They ask people in the analytics department, who's lacking, who's doing a good job and everything. And you announced today that Dean Costalas, am I saying that right? Costalas?
I think so. Costalas, yeah.
Director of soccer and analyst for the Union, has departed the organization. Dean joined the Union in 2017 as a freelancer focused on opposition scouting before joining the Union, the team full-time in 2018 and advancing to his current role in 2021. Nearly 8 years at the club. Yeah, that is insane. And to see Dean, I've never got the chance to speak to him. I've seen him around the club, upstairs in the press box, because for people who are unaware, the Union's front office pretty much are right next to us in the press box, where they're, just with their tablets watching the game unfold and everything. And yeah, to see Dean leave after 8 seasons at the club, I mean, that's a shocker. And that's a huge blow up, because this is the lead, the guy in your analytics department. And now you wonder, the people that were working under him, and again, it's not a huge department, do they decide to leave? Do they get job offers? I mean, there's a lot to come from Dean leaving. Your thoughts on the news that you broke? I mean, obviously you had multiple people tell you this. I mean, were you shocked when you found out?
Yeah, I was a little shocked. I mean, yes and no. I had heard before anything that, hearing sort of the pathway for Dean to join the organization, that he, great relationship with Jim, sort of knew him in a way. I think it was like either coached Jim's kids or something like that. I know he was a youth coach in some area around Philadelphia. But joined the team, did great things. Let me pull up the one person who I spoke with on background when I asked him about it. This person said, yeah, I'm not surprised about that, as Dean was Jim's guy. He is an incredibly smart man with a high moral compass. His skill set is unique, and view of things is one that not every organization has. he too will be a key loss for the setup. So Dean, very, very smart guy, much to what you're describing, Todd. I spoke with him a couple of times just in passing, like, hey, how are you? That type of thing. I don't think he could tell me apart from another can of paint on the wall. But nonetheless, he was super pleasant and said hello, etc. But nonetheless, he was always at practices, polite, kind, and yeah, when I was told this, along some other things that are going to cascade in the coming days and weeks, allegedly or supposedly going to happen in the next couple of days. I did my due diligence and checked with some people, and yeah, man, as I'm told, Dean departed. I reached out to the club for comment. No one got back to me. So it is what it is. It'll be weird to see the sideline without Dean. It'll be weird to see the practices without Dean. I know we don't get out there as often as we probably want to, but nonetheless, we see this man there, or have seen this man there. So we'll see what they do with that role. Do they reshape it? Does someone get a promotion? I don't know. But it makes you wonder if whoever's coming in next maybe has his or her, who knows, own analytical person that they want to bring in as well.
So Mark Kelkenberg brings up a great point. December 11th, San Diego takes 5 players from current team. So who knows who might leave with that. He's talking about the expansion draft where new teams in MLS get to select 5 players from teams around MLS. You get to protect 12 players, and homegrown players, I believe, age 24 or younger are automatically protected. And then everybody else you have to protect on your roster. And I guess the good thing for the Union is that they don't really have many players to protect. But
interestingly enough, one tidbit about the protection, 3 out of the protected players have to be from the international non-green card pool, just so you're aware as well. So 3 of them have to automatically be used on someone like a Ty Baribo, Danley. Who else doesn't have a green card?
Oh, no, guys like that. Sorry. Bueno doesn't have one.
Right, Bueno, and then do you leave a Taurus out in the wild, right? Like it's. I mean, he has an option. I don't think that'll take it, but nonetheless, just wanted to share. Like, listen, like those internationals are actually a big piece of it all too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good point that I wasn't aware of, but I already assumed that Rebo, Danley, those guys were going to get protected. But I think one person, and I've been saving this soundbite till the end of the season press conference, and I'm not going to play it here, but I think, and this is my opinion again, I want to make that clear, and I'm not speaking for Jose, just myself. I think, with Jim Curtin gone, I think this pretty much signals the end for Alejandro Bedoya at the club. And yeah, it's a shame that the last game that we saw him potentially was the Cincinnati game. But for people who were unaware, last year it played out in the media with Jim Curtin pushing pretty hard to get Bedoya back for the season. You had the players publicly as well pushing through the media that they wanted Bedoya back. And I had heard some things that privately both Jim and the players were pushing as well. So, I mean, they were doing it both publicly and privately. And Bedoya does wind up coming back for one more year with the Union. Did not sit well with some people in the organization. And nonetheless, Bedoya was back. And he made it known that, look, he was happy with his role, playing less minutes, coming off the bench, and he was still producing offensively. He said, I bet you guys, this will always stay with me. I mean, it caught me by massive surprise when he said, do you guys know we had more wins when I started than I didn't? I did not know that until he shared that. And I was like, wow, he's absolutely correct. How long do you think Bedoya was sitting on that, Jose? But yeah, I do think that this pretty much signals the end of Bedoya here, because Bedoya was Jim Curtin's guy. Jim Curtin played a huge role with getting Bedoya here from Nantes in 2016. Yes, Chris Albright played a role in that, and Richie Graham as well, but 2 out of those 3 people are no longer with the organization. And I really could see this being the end for Alejandro Bedoya now at the club. And it's a shame if this is in fact it for Alejandro Bedoya. Leon Flock, we know his contract's up, and Jim Curtin had said publicly that, he wanted Leon Flock back. I think Ernst Tanner wouldn't mind Leon Flock back either. Part of the reason why Leon came to the club was because Ernst Tanner and his scouting ability, finding Leon in Germany at St. Pauli, and he kind of rediscovered himself here in MLS. But everybody has a number, and I think one thing I feel pretty confident about is yeah, no Bedoya.
I can tell you a tidbit that I was told yesterday as I was doing my due diligence, digging and hearing more and more about this. And I think a lot of the truth is going to come out sooner rather than later about exactly what happened and maybe what some things are that have happened in the past. But allegedly, I had heard. You remember that 7-0 victory against DC a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Allegedly, I had heard that after that game, Ernst had told the team that we're practicing tomorrow after a 7-0 win, and typically it's like fuck, like get a day off or something like that. And again, I heard it from one person, so obviously I didn't do anything. So I'm just speaking it out loud because it's what I heard. I don't know. Again, I need to get more confirmation if it's true at all, and then it gets a proper reporting. But like, apparently, Ernst Tanner was like, "Yeah, you guys are coming to practice tomorrow, staff, players, etc." And my understanding was that Bedoya stepped out and chatted with Ernst and said, "If you make us come in, I'm gonna talk to the players union. Like you gotta give us some time off. Like we just did something extraordinary." And I don't know how true it is or how serious Bedoya was, but that's the story I got about it all. And it gives you an idea of Bedoya just being a character that really stands up for what he believes in, right? And protecting players. I mean, that's why he was always, and maybe still is, I can't remember, or was a representative through the union. Not the Philadelphia Union, but like the players
MLSPA,
union.
yeah.
Yeah. So again, like he's a smart man. I mean, we in the press, we know and have seen, and you don't have to be the most brilliant mind in the world to know that he's been publicly jockeying, the the press to like give us comments because he knows we're gonna post it. He knows that I'm there asking him about Herculez Gomez, like Herc and I saw that. I saw
Great
that clip.
moment.
Yeah, like we saw that. Like we know it, right? Like, and there's a reason why he's going with Mark Zumoff, a super random podcast that Mark does and brings Bedoya in talking about how he wants to continue. But Bedoya knows what he's doing. And I do wonder if anything, and again, I don't know anything, but I wonder if trying to get Bedoya back for one more year was another point of contention between Ernst and Curtin. Who knows? I mean, I'm guessing that Jim wanted him back for another year, right? It's total guess, but I would imagine. I mean, he's been his guy. It's been his player to bring in. When in reality, he's had a bench full of perfectly capable players to come in late in the game. I mean, Jesus Bueno got that new contract extension this past off season, but barely saw the field. And Jim is trotting out Alejandro Bedoya. Nothing against Bedoya, but like, how is the Bueno deal being justified? That's a conversation to be had and considered. Maybe not by us, but nonetheless, just putting it out. So figured I would share that little anecdote because it cracked me up. I'm like, oh, really? That happened? Interesting.
Yeah, Valerie said, I can fully imagine LA saying that about the players union. Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, LA is not one that bites his tongue, and well, I mean, he tries his best, right? And we got him to open up there towards the end. He's like, man, you guys are trying to get me in trouble.
So many times.
And he eventually does open up. But I mean, he's a player that's very, very smart. He knows what he's doing. And I don't know. I mean, I could see a situation wherever Jim Curtin potentially lands. I could see Bedoya following him there. I mean, Bedoya is a free agent. I mean, the Union could potentially lose him to San Diego if they don't protect him, and San Diego could potentially take Bedoya and say, "Hey, look, we're drafting you, and here you go, Bedoya. You're coming to San Diego."
They can't, because I mean, he's just a flat out free agent. There's no drafting him. It's just flat out.
But they would have his rights, right?
Alejandro Bedoya is a free man.
But the Union would still have to protect him, no? Oh,
Alejandro Bedoya is a free man come December 31st.
But the draft happens before that, so he's still technically under contract.
I mean, it could go the route of the Brian Ching. You remember that whole situation
with Houston?
I guess yes, technically. But if you're San Diego, like, why would you waste the pick with somebody who's going to be a free agent? You know what I mean?
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I get it.
I understand what you're saying. I completely understand. I don't think Bedoya would wind up going to San
You want to
Diego?
fight?
Dude, I mean, we can right
No, I
here. I
just
mean, we can end the live stream right here and just go at it. I'll drive up to you about 2 hours from Maryland, and yeah, we can scrap there or meet at Subaru Park, meet halfway, and throw it down. But no, I mean, Bedoya, I wouldn't be surprised if he follows Jim Curtin wherever Jim Curtin potentially lands, and that then brings up another point for me is coaches. I fully expected there to be shakeup within the first team coaching staff. We talked about Dean leaving the analytics side for the Union, but I wouldn't be shocked, if there's people moving on from Jim Curtin's coaching staff. And the one thing that always surprised me is when Ernst Tanner was hired by Jay Sugarman in September, August of 2018, I believe it was, when Ernie Stewart had taken the job with the U.S. men's national team. Ernst was hired in August or September 2018. And it was weird to me that Ernst Tanner, after that end of the season, decided, we'll bring back Jim Curtin, because usually, and this isn't just in soccer, this is all professional sports, where, you bring in a new GM, a sporting director, whatever you want to call it, Ernst Tanner, and they bring in their guys. And he stuck with Jim for six seasons, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, it's been a long time that those two have been together. But yeah, I always thought it was a little bit strange where, okay, I was thinking at times too, does Jay Sugarman tell Ernst Tanner, you can't touch this guy. Do not get rid of Jim Curtin. If you want to do anything else in the organization, it's free reign. But yeah, do not get rid of Jim Curtin. And that thought did cross my mind a little bit, but you got to wonder, and this is, I think, a lot of fans are pissed off at Jay Sugarman. You and I have seen the comments on social media, but the one thing I will give him credit to, and this is bringing up Ali's question, he said, so would Tanner be the one that took this decision in firing Jim Curtin? I would assume, right? I don't have confirmation, but no, as the GM, that's their job, firing and hiring people. And so I would assume that Ernst Tanner probably said, look, can I get rid of Jim Curtin? And Jay Sugarman's obviously going to have to sign off to that. But, I always thought that there would be a clash between Ernst Tanner and Jay Sugarman, maybe where Jay loved Jim and he would be untouchable. But to Jay's credit, he stayed out of this. Again, I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but I would imagine that he stayed out of this and allowed Ernst Tanner to do his job, because why would you want to come to a team and not be able to do the full capabilities of a GM? So I would assume that Ernst Tanner was the one who made that call and that Jay Sugarman stayed out of it.
I have no information. And frankly, if I was to say something, I'd probably get in trouble and go down a rabbit hole that I experienced earlier in the year, actually the very beginning of the year. And I really don't want to do that. I like the Union PR. Like, I don't want any issues whatsoever. So who knows, man? My guess is that he was advised in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, and again, this is me totally speculating, but
again, it's the job of the GM in any sport. It's not just soccer. Like, it's their job to hire and fire people.
Who you can look at it this way, right? I don't remember when exactly they announced the new complex. Do you remember what year it was when they announced everything?
2022, maybe?
2022. So I think, I'm getting super nerdy here, but I think at that point, finance rates were starting to climb. So borrowing money was expensive. So as you think about developing that whole thing, Ernst and I should say Jay is so deep into it now with his own wallet and the wallet of ownership to build this academy building and the pipeline that they've built, et cetera, that of course they're going to keep Ernst over Jim if you think about it, right? In terms of who's at the heart of this all. Obviously, Tommy Wilson left, and John Shear has been, I think, great so far.
October 4th, 2022 is when they announced it.
Yeah, so John Shear has maybe done a great job. I'm guessing so. I haven't heard otherwise. If anything, I've heard a lot of praise about him lately. Giving glowing comments to Gimme Sport as well. So it's interesting, but if you think about it, Ernst has done exactly what he's supposed to do, which is develop players, develop winning teams, But winning is different in this league, right? You can have the most points in over the past 5 years, 6 years, but ultimately in the United States, it comes down to a playoff system. And sure, there's other leagues that comes down to that, but in most leagues across the world, if you finish with the most points in first place, you get a trophy. Obviously, MLS is not that way. So I don't know. Ernst has turned, $100,000 players from, in terms of like housing them in the academy, putting them through school, that type of thing, and turned them into $12 million sales, $6 million sales, $4 million sales. What was Trusty, like a few $100,000 of GAM or whatever the heck was it, cash or GAM? I can't remember what his deal was. So like he's turned players into good deals in terms of outbound. So yeah, I think that maybe Ernst sort of had the was in the winning position in terms of what he actually is. It's almost like a role in an organization. Are you bringing in money or are you costing us money? And Ernst definitely brings them in money when you think about the sales and the transactions that he puts together.
100%. And 100%. Like, I've seen comments where people are upset with Jay Sugarman, why don't you get rid of Ernst Tanner? But it's like, why would he? He's making him money with player sales and everything. It's like he's doing exactly what he was hired to do, and that's to make this team global on the whole world soccer stage. And at the same time, he's making money with player sales. And so, yeah, he's doing exactly what Jay Sugarman wanted him to do. So we can go ahead and move on from this topic. One thing too I wanted to bring up is, in my opinion, again, not speaking for Jose, my opinion is I don't think this is how Jim Curtin deserved to go out. Obvious, in my opinion. Yeah, you can say the writing was maybe on the wall with the way that the season went, and this is on me too. I wanted to go and find the soundbite from when I did my season predictions at the way beginning of the season, and I had said at the time that any manager that does not make the playoffs deserves to get fired. And yeah, I mean, that is so crazy. I did not mean that about Jim Curtin, but yet it becomes true. And when you look at the season that the Union had as a whole, I mean, we don't have to remind you guys of how poor the season went, but you look
Can you bring up that comment from Sexy Hoagie? That's actually a very good point.
This?
Yeah. Someone else had asked earlier, and I think the only player, and I'm not on Instagram. You would say otherwise because I send you such dumb shit on Instagram.
Yeah, only Damian Lowe.
Only Damian Lowe is the one I think has done a message about Jim, and it was 3 words and I guess a punctuation. Was it even a punctuation at the end? I think it was just "Thank you, boss." I don't even think there was a period at the end of that sentence. So for what it's worth, literally just 3 letters, not even punctuation. But I don't think anyone else has said anything. Not even the club, just a club statement with a really shoddy graphic, not a, "Thank you, Jim" or anything. Maybe they're working on it. Obviously, everything's still so fresh. But I think this is actually something to think about too, right? Like, again, they haven't given us much to go off of outside of the club statement. Plus, like, I don't know if the comments in the press release were polite. Were they super glowing? I don't know. Maybe in a way. I frankly don't read press releases that much anymore. I usually just look at the headline and go from it because I know that those people are not actually saying those things. It's just a canned, like, we know who types them. You and I know who types them, Todd, and someone else reviews them and sends them. So again, like, for what it's worth, I think it's a very good point. Where is there more of a video, a thank you, et cetera?
So the only thing I would say is, and you talked about this at the beginning, maybe this is a decision that wasn't in the works, that it happened recently. And so usually if something like this is in the works, the social media team's going to be putting videos together. And so maybe this caught everybody by surprise where they haven't had time yet to put the proper video together. And maybe that's what the waiting one. I mean, at least I would hope. But
Union Hulk put a video before the Union.
I mean, Union Hulk, I mean, he or she, they, I don't know, whoever runs that account. They're on top of everything. And I don't know, maybe I'm making excuses and whatnot, but probably am. But I would hope that they do something proper for Jim Curtin. I mean, 10 years. And yeah, you talked about the press release, and I wanted to start the podcast off talking about that, but I didn't. But for people who didn't see the press release, it reads this. Philadelphia Union today announced that they have parted ways with head coach Jim Curtin, as the process to find a new head coach will begin immediately. Details regarding the interim coaching staff will be announced in the coming days. Quote, Jim has been a remarkable leader and integral part of our team's success during his tenure, said Jay Sugarman, principal owner, Philadelphia Union. I've had the privilege to watch him grow into one of the top coaches in the league and deliver strong results and memorable moments that will be ingrained in our club's history. This has been a difficult decision due in part to the immense gratitude and respect we have for him. We have no doubt he will find great success in his future coaching endeavors, end quote. We want start a new quote. We want to extend our heartfelt appreciation to Jim for his passion and dedication to this club over the last 10 seasons. He greatly contributed to the success the club has achieved in recent years, and for that, we are extremely grateful, said Ernst Tanner, sporting director. We thank Jim for the significant impact he made for both on and off the field and in the community. Following the 2024 season, we recognize the need for change. We'll continue to evaluate our sporting strategy and make necessary changes this offseason to best set up the team for success, end quote. So, yeah, you get two quotes there from Jay Sugarman and Ernst Tanner. And I actually think somebody had made a pretty good comment here where
That is a glowing thank you. That is not wrong. But I am so cynical with press releases because, again, like, there's a person who writes them, there's another person who reviews them, and I don't even know that there's much to it outside of the mind of those two people. But I could be wrong. Maybe Ernst sat with the copywriter and like said that. I don't know. I don't think so, but it is what it is. It's a press statement for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. So there's comments coming in on Facebook, and for whatever reason, they're not showing, so people know I'm not lying. I have no clue why your name's not popping up on the live stream. Again, this is our first time doing this with a new platform. Jose, we're about to be at 100 people, so this is pretty good. This is pretty good. So people that are watching live, continue to share this on social media, get people in here. I'm sure Jose and I will probably talk for another 15 minutes because I do have two more quotes that I want to play, but getting back to the original point, so many comments coming in. I don't think Jim Curtin deserved to go out this way. I mean, 4 wins at home, it's harsh, right? It's never been done in club history. 37 points, which tied the worst run in club history since 2015. We know it was a terrible season. I mean, this was unprecedented. And they had missed out on the playoffs for the first time since 2017. But, man, it feels a little hard done with Andre Blake missing a good amount of the season. And maybe the argument would be from the club that, look, we still believe that we had a strong roster, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have missed out on the playoffs for the first time since 2017. But, yeah, I do think Andre Blake missing 20 games, I believe it was, in MLS this season plays a big part in why you had the type of season you had. And I know by others in the media, they made the argument, well, did Andre Blake really make that much of a difference? I think stats would tell yes, that is the case. But you also got rid of Jose Martinez in the summertime, and I get it, right? I mean, even when Jose was here, it was still a up and down season. But I feel so bad for Jim Curtin that this isn't the way that the season should have went for him. This isn't how he should have went out. And I hope fans don't remember Jim Curtin for his 2024 season. I have 2 clips that I want to play really quickly. So one being from Jim Curtin after the New York Red Bulls game at Red Bull Arena where the Union won 2-0. And then the second clip will be Jim Curtin before FC Cincinnati on decision day. So the first one, Jim Curtin after New York Red Bulls. Jim Curtin's talking about how he will never have another season like he did again at home. And this is Jim.
Yeah, our home form, Jimmy, kills us right now, because we lost to, I don't want to say bad teams, but we dropped a lot of points in positions where we should have been comfortable and maybe deserved points. And it hurts. So I don't have the answer as to why we've lost so much. I know it's unacceptable, and I will not go through another season where it happens. So we'll do everything in our power to change it. It's a position, Jonathan, that I don't ever want to feel this way again, trying to scrape our way into the 8 or 9 seed. It's our reality, though. It's been done by us. And as the leader, I take the responsibility of that. But, a million things have happened in the previous 34 games to get us to this spot. And now we have 1 game left. We have to have a really good performance to get a win.
Yeah, so that's Jim Curtin talking about how he never wants to have another home season like that again. Those 4 wins at home, totally unacceptable. And I feel bad that he didn't get the chance to correct that. And then Jim Curtin was talking about, they're used to fighting on decision day for a top 4 spot, and how they're fighting to get into the playoffs. And, it was in their hands towards the end of the season, and they blew it with bad results. But a lot of good comments coming in here. Vince going back to Jim Curtin never getting a proper goodbye. He says Bruce Arena got better treatment from New England and let the team down the sewer. It's a really good point. Bruce Berger, really good friend in the show, says, enjoying the show as always. Jose, sell me the 2019 poster on your wall. Been looking for them. Yeah, that one. That's the one they're looking for. Not for sale, I think Jose is going to say. Maybe everything has a price. Coming here from Michael says, Blake is always making a difference, but I feel like he had to bail us out far too many times with a large amount of defensive mistakes. And yeah, that's been true. I feel like the last couple of years, I think. And this year, we definitely saw the defensive mistakes with Glesnes, Elliott. Jose Martinez had a couple of bad mistakes. Nate Haverhill had bad mistakes. Kai Wagner. Nobody was prone to mistakes this season. And the one constant over the years has been Andre Blake bailing out that defense. Another comment right here coming in. A lot of comments, actually. I appreciate you guys commenting on the show and sharing this. We're so close to 100. We can get to 100. Keep sharing this on social media, everybody. But this comment coming in right here says, after Jose left, the whole team dynamic and grit left with him. I might not argue that. You did see some of the fight leave out. Kai Wagner told you, Jose, after the Cincinnati game, that it pissed him off when players went straight to the phone after the game, that they didn't care. And that's an issue, right? And Ernst Tanner could turn around and say, well, that's Jim Curtin's problem. He sets the culture in the locker room, and if players aren't caring, then that's on the head coach. But yeah, Kai Wagner did kind of mention that, right? He said that there was guys in the locker room that didn't care. They went straight to the phones, and that pisses them off.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do want to say though, Todd, I think I don't want revisionist history to take over here in a way too. Let's make no mistake that there was a large part of the fan base, subset, let's call it, that wanted Curtin out, especially during that very, very tough spell in the summer, right? That wanted him gone, etc. Let's just be very clear about that. I think currently what we're seeing is a lot of recency bias in terms of well, he tried, maybe, feeling sad, feeling bad, reminiscing about the past. Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that tweet because it was in Spanish, and about 5 or 6 people tweeted or sent it to me via text message and direct message on Instagram and Twitter. It's okay, what do you want me to do? But anyways, I think people are reminiscing, right, of nostalgia, right? Jim has been here for 10 years, and think about everything and everyone, staff and players, that have come and gone in the past 10 years of Jim Curtin, where we had, Chaco Maidana, Vincent Nogueira, Danny Cruz, just a ton of players come and go. And suddenly, we're feeling really bad, when in reality, the fans at that time, and I think good friend of the show who texted me, it's yeah, well, do think about this, right? This is a league that keeps evolving and continues to grow. So was Jim done evolving? Was Jim done growing? But you could also argue that over the past 2, 3, 4 years, the playbook has been out on the Union in terms of the formation, when Jim substitutes, or the fact that he doesn't substitute, who he brings in, who he doesn't bring in. It's been sort of God, look no further than the clips I was putting out, Todd, with pregame conferences with opponents' coaches, where we're going against the union. They're going to hit us really hard. We're going to have to hit harder. They press. Like it was the exact same comment from every single coach, like boom, 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 to the point that like, there's no point in this. Like it's everybody has the same playbook against the union. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So I just want to
Pat Noonan
say
had
that
it.
out. What's that?
Pat Noonan sure had that playbook.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just such 10 years, such a long time in this league. It's just unprecedented. It just feels so bizarre that this actually happened. But was Jim the fall guy? In a way, right? And I think the way I put it to somebody who may or may not be on the chat right now, Jim Curtin getting fired almost feels like an F1 driver who's being let go because they couldn't win races while he was driving a Toyota Prius on the track. Right, while everybody else is driving supercars or Formula One cars, etc. Like it felt like pieces of those teams and engines, etc., were just so different for everybody else. But Jim was finding a way to move this team along down the track faster than they ever really should have over the past 5-6 years. So, is that a credit just to Jim? No, because obviously Ernst deserves a lot of credit for that in terms of Kai, Leon, etc. But again, Jim said it out loud in that one clip I tweeted. The league is evolving, the league is changing, and those who are not keeping up are going to be left behind. And
Union.
I would say that the union got left behind really, really fast and really, really far, in less than a year.
Yeah, and I mean, Evan says it here. League quality improved over the past 2 seasons. Union quality did not. Danny actually brings up a really good point here. He says, I think teams built their rosters in order to compete with the union, and the union never changed the strategy that they used on the field. And so I forget what GM said this, and you might have tweeted this out, where this GM, I forget what team it was, said that they wanted to build their team like the union. And maybe this was recently, maybe this was a while ago. I can't remember. But one thing I do remember from a while ago is the teams in MLS started going out and finding these obscure players like the Union for little transfer fees for players nobody had ever heard of. And I do think part of that maybe has to go to Ernst Tanner. I mean, he was hitting signing after signing after signing, and for cheap too, going to third and fourth divisions. And we started seeing more and more of that around the league. And we started seeing teams going to, top tier leagues, whether it be like a Romania, a Turkey. I don't think anybody from Turkey has been bought, but Denmark, we've seen a lot of teams the last couple seasons going to Denmark. I mean, we're seeing not the top 5 leagues. That's a point that I'm trying to make. And teams are going there and bringing these players into MLS. And I do think part of that credit has to go to Ernst Tanner. Teams seeing that, hey, look, they're not spending a ton of money, but they're finding quality players. And, I saw some people bring up the point where, it doesn't make Jim Curtin look good where Ty Burrebo sat on the bench for all that time. And, what could have been, we talked about this, Jose, multiple times, what could have been if you were playing Ty Burrebo when Julian Kranza was here? And, Ernst Tanner, I'm sure, would make the argument, look, I gave you players, and Jim Curtin's a very loyal guy. He has his guys. There's no denying that. I think that's pretty clear, whether people need sources for that or not. I mean, watching what Jim Curtin does on the field, it's clear and obvious that if you're not one of his guys, you're not getting anywhere near that field. And Ernst Tanner can turn around and say, look, I gave you players. I believe these are quality players, and you're just not trusting them to play. And, that's on you. And we've seen over the years so many fans just complaining about the same starting 11, the same starting 11 being ran into the ground. I mean, look, we saw that with Jacob Glesnes in 2023, where he had to miss the playoffs because of no break. I mean, the Union were tweeting out these stats. Oh, he's an Iron Man. He's played every single game for every single minute. And look, it ultimately cost them to miss in the playoffs, and not having Jacob Glesnes was a big blow. And yeah, I mean, I think the start of the season Jacob had, the slow start this year that he had, could potentially be linked back to that injury, just still recovering from that hernia injury. But
are you a medical professional now, Todd? Tell us more, please.
Yeah. I mean, we did hear Jacob not get happy with somebody questioning him that, but I don't know. It makes sense to me, right? It's like, I mean, he's an older player. You play a high pressing system, and I've said it plenty of times here on the show where I think, and everybody that's here, they're smart people. They all know it. We know it, that, this team kept getting run back. And when you're a high pressing team, and I'll use Liverpool as an example. I use them all the time, where, somebody like a Lallana, a Milner, a Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino just press, and they eventually get sold, get moved on, because, Jurgen Klopp ran their legs out and they couldn't press as much as they did when they were younger. I think we start to see a little bit of the same here with the Union. But two more things maybe I bring up. One thing I definitely want to bring up, and maybe one more thing, but that's it. But it's this tweet right here. Hopefully you guys can see this. Is from Tom Bogert. This was back in July of this year, July 6th, 2024. He said, Jim Curtin's job is not in danger, with the Philadelphia Union, sources say. The club have the full backing of the manager. Union been among the best team in MLS for the last 5-6 years, every season, great consistency. And so when Tom Bogert tweeted that out on July 6th, since that moment, the Union had went 5-6-1 in MLS play. They had dropped points to Toronto, Inter Miami, Atlanta, and Cincy. That Inter Miami game, the Union were in it. And yes, they lose 3-1 down in Miami, but they still had chances. There were so many gifts that Miami gave them in that match, and they just couldn't capitalize on it. We did see the Union reach the third place game in the League's Cup, but they did have 1 point in the last 4 games. Notable wins during this run, the last 12 games, were against New York Red Bulls 2-0, 5-0 away to New York City, 4-0 to DC United, and then I just mentioned that 3-1 loss to Miami. Union had plenty of chances in that game to tie it up, but Tom tweets this out that, he has the full backing of the owners. His job's safe, even though the Union aren't having a season that they're used to. And now we look on November 7th is when the Union announced Jim Curtin's no longer the manager of the club. Things can obviously change. Things happen so rapidly in sports, but for Tom Bogert to get multiple sources to say that the owners have the full trust in Jim Curtin, that his job's safe, and now suddenly he's lost his job, something seriously messed up should have happened. And I don't want to speculate, but we don't even have to talk about that quote too much, Jose. If you want to leave it alone, that's fine. I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was interesting, where Tom Bogert, respected journalist, went on record back in July, said multiple sources told him that ownership was fine with Jim Curtin, that he has the full backing, that his job's not in danger. And now suddenly Jim Curtin's out of a job. You shook your head. You don't want to touch that. That is completely fine by me. But
no, I mean, all I'll say is that, a lot of this stuff is a time capsule, right? Like, that tweet is a moment in time. And what happened to Jose? I'm here. Did I freeze?
No, you're here.
Oh, okay. I saw Philly Rover say, what happened to Jose? He's like, I think I'm here.
No, they were looking at you. Look at your phone.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. No, all I would say is, again, like, it's maybe again, like, these things, soccer is, look no further than what the tweet I made yesterday, right? Where, like, I'm reviewing this magazine. Everybody, I'll be sharing more information on it, but I'm reviewing a magazine, a photozine, I guess is the better term, that focused on the soccer scene in Philadelphia. It's really cool. But, like, if you read that magazine as is, you would think that the Union love Jim Curtin, and he's the second coming of God. But obviously, when I get to the part about Jim Curtin yesterday, it's like the same day that he gets fired. So it's like, well, the soccer world moves, and it moves very, very fast. So maybe things change that fast drastically and continue to maybe inform what we were and we are currently guessing, right, Todd, in terms of, like, maybe this firing developed so quickly, genuinely within like 72 hours. Yeah, Todd, remember when Jim Curtin humbled you real fast?
Yeah, we had a really good discussion after that. My respect for Jim Curtin went up tenfold that day. So yeah, I mean, he scolded me in the press conference, but afterwards, we had a really good conversation for 25 minutes. So massive respect for Jim Curtin. And that's Jim Curtin there protecting his player. For people who are just listening to this, not watching it, Mark chimes in and says, a fan named Todd was mad about Quinn being played as a striker. I did indeed call Jim Curtin and pull up stats, but Jim Curtin humbled me real fast and said context is key. Well, no, Jim, at the time I wasn't paying for Twitter, so I only had 270 characters or whatever it is. So, I pick and chose what I could leave in there, but continue, Jose.
No, all I would say is, at the time, maybe the club was very happy with Jim, but then, again, we don't know what happened over the past 72 hours or week, honestly. And actually, Mark's context is even further proof, because that is exactly when you think about that timeline, right? Of that awful spell of games, right? Where what was it, like almost 3 months without a win or whatever it was? It was something crazy.
It was bad.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. So, again, just think about it that way. It just, maybe things just move that drastically, that quickly over the past week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things change. The sporting world's never ending, and things happen very, very quickly, fast. And I want to touch on this from Justin Blair, friend of the show from Cincy Soccer Talk. He says, where does Jim land? We threw out a whole bunch of possibilities at the beginning of the show. Columbus is interesting because, and I heard this talked about on another podcast as well, where if Columbus can't get confirmation from Nancy that he's there throughout the whole 2025 season, do you just move on from him? And would Columbus call Jim Curtin? I think absolutely. And oh my God, I mean, I feel like Jim Curtin and to Columbus would be fantastic. I mean, he gets there's no guarantee that Kuchar is going to be there, but Columbus under the new ownership has proven that they will spend to get key players in. So that's all Jim Curtin needs. I think personally, I think Atlanta makes sense for Jim Curtin. It was reported a month ago, I think it was, that Jim Curtin had declined an interview.
Right.
Atlanta hasn't announced a new head coach yet, and maybe that offer is still on the table. I think honestly, and they probably won't say this out loud, I think Chicago Fire probably kicking themselves that they hired and announced Greg Berhalter when they did, where I think Jim Curtin's a better coach than Greg Berhalter, because if Chicago didn't have a coach yet, Chicago makes a lot of sense for Jim Curtin to go back there, former player of theirs, and basically giving him the keys to the house. I mean,
isn't he in their Hall of Fame or something?
Would have to look that up. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think he was a star player of theirs, but I mean, he was a decent player for them, and the fans still seem to love him. Yeah, exactly. U.S. Open Cup and Supporters Shield, I believe. But yeah, I mean, I think Jim Curtin's going to have choices in MLS. We talked about Dallas being open, St. Louis being open, Atlanta's open. Does a team that's comfortable with their coach decide, hey, look, we want to go ahead and just move on? But we shall see. I mean, a whole bunch of people, Jose, in the comments at the beginning of the show, was asking, start rumors linking coaches to the union. I mean, there's so many comments to go back to try to pull those back, but I think, and I'll talk quickly on this. The one thing I will say is Ernst Tanner will get a coach that plays his system 4-4-2. You're not going to have a new coach in here playing their formation, the way they want to play. Ernst Tanner has started it from the top to the bottom. We are going to play the 4-4-2 diamond formation. Remember when Ernst Tanner was not here, the Union were playing a 4-2-3-1 with Ernie Stewart, and Ernst Tanner comes in and says, look, we're going to change the whole philosophy of the club, and we're going to go ahead and play the 4-4-2 diamond. And so I think whatever manager that Ernst Tanner comes in and brings in, and they're still going to play the diamond. Maybe they change things up a little bit, maybe a little bit tactical twist here and there, but it's still going to be the 4-4-2 diamond. They're still going to be pressing, and that's not going to change. Who Ernst Tanner brings in, I have no clue. I absolutely have no clue who he brings in, and I feel like that's what happens with all of his signings. None of us have a clue, so that's what I will say about that.
What I will say about that is all of you listening and watching, keep track of the people who break news and share news that are actually news versus speculating and guessing and rumoring. I think speculation's fine. It's fun, etc. But also keep track of who has a track record of only sharing factual stuff. That's all I'll say, especially as the club and the season and 100 and what at this point, 130, 150 days away from preseason kicking off out in Florida or wherever they go next year. Like
They're going to Germany, dude. They're going to Germany.
now that Ernst can do whatever he wants in a way, maybe. All I'll say is, just remember that when you're thinking about this, right? Sure, the conversation is fun, etc., but know who to go to when you want news. Know who you go to for commentary and speculation. That's all I will say. I know I've always pledged to people who follow me, like I'm going to try my hardest not to get into speculation, like that Jose Martinez tweet or the Jose Martinez departure. Like there were a lot of rumors, but once I actually had heard, yeah, it's happening. Like, okay, that's when I'm fine. Did Todd leave?
No,
there you are. I was going to say, that's when I'm finally going to chime in. So for what it's worth, I guess I'm getting a spotlight right now. Why? I don't know. But thank you, everybody, for supporting our work. I know Todd's getting ready to wrap this up because it's an hour 15. We have Val in the comments asking us, what time is the press conference on Monday? It's irrelevant because I'm not going to be there. I will be in New Mexico.
It's 10 o'clock. 10 a.m.
Which is 8 a.m. for me, right?
You'll be in New Mexico first?
Yeah,
8 a.m. Ooh, that's early.
That's very early. So maybe I'll tune in because I don't have anything till lunch that day, actually. So
yeah. So the last thing before I let Jose plug, or if you want to plug and go now, Jose, that's fine. Is I'll miss Jim Curtin. I've grown to respect him massively. He's been really, really good with me. I have a good relationship with him. And look, I'm somebody that doesn't do this full time. Jose is somebody that doesn't do this full time. But for Jim Curtin to give us the time and the responses to our questions that he doesn't have to. I'll admit I don't ask the greatest questions in the world, but he's always been so kind to me. And just going to away games, watching him smile that somebody showed up, and I won't forget going to Columbus this year. It was me, Kyle, and Jillian Omni. And he was shocked to see us in the locker room. He's like, "Hey guys, thanks so much for coming out." And he had said to us afterwards, he's like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry for that performance." And I thought that was a little bit weird because Jim's never said that before, never apologized for a bad performance. But the relationship that I had with him, the respect that I've gained from watching him lead this team, whether it be the coaches, the players, people throughout the organization. I mean, he's a leader, and I don't want fans to remember this 2024 season for Jim Curtin's legacy. I don't think fans are going to remember this for his legacy. Fans are going to remember him for that two-time MLS Coach of the Year in 2020 and 2022, bringing the Union the first trophy in 2020, the Supporters Shield, reaching MLS Cup final in 2022, reaching those 3 U.S. Open Cups that I think fans are still triggered by. But look, Jim Curtin broke a lot of records here in Philadelphia, and he's been really, really kind to me, and I'm going to miss him. And this is weird to say, but last night I was so angry yesterday. I was so upset, so angry, and today it was more sadness and just going back, listening to press conferences, knowing that Jim won't be there anymore because, I knew every season that there would be new players, new people in the Union organization, but the one constant that was there is Jim Curtin. And I went to bed pissed off that Jim Curtin was no longer going to be at the Philadelphia Union. But this is the sports world. It's a business, and 10 years is a long time to be anywhere. Like we said at the beginning, the second longest tenured coach in MLS, and you don't really get that a lot in sports. And yeah, Mark, it did seem like I was going through the stages of grief. And LA says, the stages of depression by Todd. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a guy who honestly did not need to be as nice to me as he was. And for somebody who doesn't do this full time, who hasn't been doing this for a long time, my respect to Jim Curtin. So any final thoughts, Jose?
Yeah, it's going to be different. And, change is neither good or bad until you try it. Obviously, the Union decided to try it and take a stab at it, see what this looks like. 10 years of consistency was not enough. And you could argue that's a good thing or a bad thing. But nonetheless, I think what's going to happen is, it's from the ground floor at this point, right? Sure, the roster is what it is. I think about, anytime a new manager comes in, it's usually like a season or two until they actually have their guys, or they're able to salvage what they want from what's already there, not just backroom staff, but also players. So it'll take some time for whoever this person is, but ultimately with Jim, like, he was fine for me. He was polite to me. I think he appreciated some of the banter that we would have from time to time. And, like, I remember like, I remember I remember joking with him about his suits from time to time. Like, like, you should go reach out to this guy and get him one of your suits, that type of stuff. So he was very personable. He is, I should say, because he's not dead, but like, he is a very Philly guy, and he understood it. So he understood that this team was the 5th out of the 5, and he needed to do above and beyond what he was used to ever press wise to make sure that this team stayed relevant. So that doesn't happen often. That doesn't come from a lot of coaches, and it came very natural for him. So I wish him luck. I think he's a guy, much like I have become with José Martinez, that I'm going to follow wherever he goes in a way, right? In terms of like reporting, reading, watching. I mean, to this point, I'm still sharing clips about José Martinez out at Corinthians, right? On almost like a religious level, just because, I appreciated the dude. So with Jim, I'll appreciate the hell out of him for as long as I know. I think he would have wanted another stab at making it right. I would feel comfortable saying that this is not the way he wanted his last year to go. Nobody would, but specifically him as a super competitive dude. Like, there's no way that he wanted 2024 to be the way that he gets, yeeted out of town in a way. So I wish him luck. I haven't, but I probably should. I'll have done it periodically, but like, if there's anybody watching or listening that wants to talk behind anonymity, I'm always available. And some people have taken me up on that, and it's been really rewarding both ways in terms of my reporting, but also for them to sort of get stuff out that needs to be aired out. So yeah, man, we're gearing up, or you are specifically. You'll be at the press conference. I won't. I'll be tuning in from New Mexico, but I think it's gonna be heated. Jay actually being in front of you and whoever else is going, it'll be really, really fascinating, because Jay, outside of the town hall, I don't think he's really done a whole lot of open press like that. So he's usually reserved for the Inquirer and some bigger publications. So I'm really hopeful that you all ask some good questions, because this club genuinely needs new identity. And I think there's a reality of what this new identity can be and what it actually will become 150 days from now. Two very different things.
I know it's right there at the bottom of the screen, Jose, but for people who are audio only, where can people follow you on social media and your Substack?
Hold on, I'm waiting for, there you go. I don't even know my own handle. At Jose R. Nuñez 91 and Nuñez Substack.com. So by all means, follow me, support me in whatever way you want. I know we're coming to the end of my very first year doing the Substack experiment, and it's been super fruitful in a way of getting new equipment and reporting out. Haven't made a decision on what it looks like next year. I think I'll continue it. But I'll be putting a transparency post out. I just want to be super transparent with people. Like, this is how many people supported me. This is the money I made, and just thanking people ultimately. Entirely too kind, considering that everything I posted on Substack was ultimately free. And I think it'll continue that way for the following year. So should people want to support me, they can, but absolutely don't have to, as this is very much not my full-time living whatsoever, but something I really enjoy doing. My goal has always been, Todd, and I think you would relate to this, like making sure that these fans are the most knowledgeable in MLS. And I think that we're doing some good work and getting there. The roster rules and CBAs are very tough, even for us most of the time.
So hard. But you know what? Jose does travel, and that deserves a round of applause. Jose travels, and paying for his Substack definitely helps with that. I know when we went to New York Red Bulls, you helped out with gas money and tolls, and I appreciate you for that. So for all that you guys do to support us. We thank you greatly. And Jose, best on the beat, better than me. And I will say that I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job producing the show, though. I mean, we saw Alice here, pro streamer, already having your handles and everything down there. So Mike, first time using StreamYard. I think you got to take a back seat, brother. But if you guys aren't following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, my personal @It'sAToddsLife. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the Substack, thefreekick.substack.com.
Oh, you have that ready?
And
is that on your soundboard? Yeah, not good.
Oh, yeah. Somebody want it? And,
yeah, someone.
And if you want to check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod, where I do goals breakdowns, where I will be doing a top 10 saves, top 10 goals of the season. Spoiler alert, Andrew Rick, the best save of the year. Jack McGlynn, best goal of the year. But Valerie says, yeah, let's hear it. Not good.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Yeah, not good. Yeah, not good.
Not good that they fired Jim Curtin. That's right. But I appreciate the support that you guys have given me and for Jose. And yeah, this is great. 95 people is the most that we had tonight on the live stream. And yeah, it makes me proud. And so I'm sure a lot of it is because Jim Curtin being fired and you guys saw the title of the episode. But I do credit that to Jose for the reason why this blew up tonight. So thank you guys. With that said, my name is Todd and this is the Free Kick Podcast.